Well, hello friends, and welcome back to Random Hearts. Today we're going to share a video that involves a hodgepodge of video footage as my husband and I worked on the cabinetry and countertops for our garden shed. Now this does span almost an entire year. My husband started working on this in August, I believe, last year. And then in the end of September, he picked up a sheet of plywood and did tear his bicep. So he had surgery for that in October and then was out of commission for about 4, almost 5 months. Not a lot of work was done during that point, but then he came back to it this year in March, and now we are trying to finish up this project. I will do my best to talk you through what my husband is doing here on these clips, but this is a bottom panel to one of the cabinets. There is no top on these because there will eventually be a countertop. Now, my husband is very thorough with how he puts these cabinets together. He likes them to be very sturdy. So you'll see quite a few routed out joints so that he can put the panels directly into the other panel. And this is one of the side panels right here. He used a scrap piece of wood there along with probably a 120 grit sandpaper, maybe an 80 grit, to just clean out that track a little bit, that routed joint, and make it a little smoother when he needs to put those pieces together. Now, he does sand everything prior to putting it together. That does help me with the finishing, and I do appreciate that quite a lot. He'll start with a 120 grit sandpaper, and then I go in with a finer grit, usually a 220, and sometimes even up to a 300 when I'm doing the finishing work on it. But he'll just sand those down, and then he's going to glue and attach these pieces together. He's got 2 side panels right here and the bottom, and he's just going to put glue into those routed joints and then square everything up, and he will eventually tack that in with some little brad nails. And that is pretty much the base of the cabinet. Like I said, there is a countertop to these, so they do not need a top, but he's just going to nail that bottom in real sturdy like. And we are not worried about the routed joint on the back because that will not be visible. He's also going to do something that I requested here. I needed all of my shelves to have adjustable shelving, meaning he's going to put in some peg holes here so that I can adjust that shelving depending on what I need to store. I have some items, especially pots and planters, that are taller than others. I have chemicals and fertilizers that have adjusting sizes, and I need the ability to be able to move the shelves to help me store things more efficiently. Here he is cutting down some pine to add as a brace. You've noticed that we don't have a top on these yet, and anything that is 3-sided or 2-sided will start to rack or lose its square shape as it is being moved around. And so this will stabilize that top section before we actually put our countertop on. And that's what he's doing right here. He's going to rip that down just a little bit more on the table saw. And I do appreciate that he's being safe here. In a minute, he's going to pick up one of his tools that we just recently purchased. This is a pusher that can help you guide your piece of wood through your saw without getting your fingers in the way. And he also is wearing ear protection and eye protection. I very much appreciate that he is taking that extra step to be safe. So he's going to brad nail that in to the cabinet. That will stabilize the top, keep it from racking, and hopefully keep it from being out of square. Now, because we are using, I believe we're using 3/4 inch plywood to build all of the bases and major structure of these cabinets, we do have raw edges where the plywood is visible. So my husband is using a pocket hole jig right here to take some smaller pieces of pine and make a face frame for the cabinet itself. That will help hide all of the plywood edges and it'll also give it a little more definition and make it look a little neater. We like using the pocket holes on the back side because we can attach those and get a nice square frame and then just brad nail that to the cabinetry itself. Now, of course, my husband's probably using glue as well as the brad nails to attach this to the cabinet base, but that is what he's doing right here, is putting that face frame together. He uses these big clamps to keep it square, and it works beautifully. Now, he doesn't have much else to do on this particular cabinet. He's just going to finish putting this face frame together, attach it to the cabinet, then he will hand over the cabinet for me to work on. Now, it is typically my job in our house to do the finish work. I like to be very meticulous and make sure everything has a nice finish on it. It's nice and smooth, nice and clean, and I do enjoy painting. Now, I don't enjoy taping off and the prep work that's involved with painting, but here I am taking some 220 grit sandpaper and smoothing out the raw edges on these 4x4 posts. I am actually breaking down those edges so they're not sharp. And I did have a little bit of trouble because these were pretty rough pieces of lumber, but I did tack cloth them and make sure they were nice and cleaned up before I started in on the painting. Now, I am using a primer paint combination here. Typically, don't like to use that. I like to prime and then put the paint on, but I did try it on these and it actually worked okay, but I did need several coats. I think I used 2 coats on this, and there was some touch-up work that also needed to be done. But like I said, this was months ago. I hardly remember even doing this, and we ended up using only one of these support posts in the shed. Now, I did decide to keep this footage in here even though it was an epic fail. We made a paint booth behind our camper in our driveway, and as you'll see in a minute, the spray gun was not covering very well, and I ended up with a cloud of paint around me, not very good coverage, and we were wasting a ton of paint. So I did end up hand painting all of these cabinets with a paintbrush. This first one right here, I did the whole thing with the paintbrush, but in later cabinetry, I did put the first coat on with a foam roller, and then I would come through right immediately after I put that on and put in the brush strokes with a light brushing over the top. I really liked the way that looked, a whole lot better than the foam roller itself. I did not like the texture the roller was leaving, but the roller did better with coverage. You'll see right here that this is not covering very well. This is the first coat, and I did have to do 2 coats on every single one of these cabinets, which was kind of a pain, but I don't mind. And I had a glorious day to work on the deck here. It was nice and warm, and I enjoyed the sunshine on my back. Now, the majority of our cabinets that we built for this shed are a bookshelf style. They've got adjustable shelving, they have a very simple face plate, and they look like a bookshelf. Some of them are facing towards each other, but the one I am working on right now, this is a drawer section. And this one is going in a forward-facing cabinet that is using a drawer panel and 2 door panels from a vanity when we redid our bathroom in the upstairs. And for whatever reason, we kept those face plates for those cabinets and decided this would be a good project to use those on. So we're painting everything. We attached these drawer fronts to a simple box, and we're painting everything white to fit in with the cabinetry. And I'm also painting the interiors because I think that will just make it seem a whole lot neater than if I left them raw. But I'm going to finish this up, and you'll see here in a minute, those panels are a little more decorative than the rest of our cabinetry that we built. You'll see those panels up in the left-hand corner, and they are definitely a little different style than the rest of the cabinetry we were building. Right here, my husband is using his new laser level to attach these cabinets to the wall and to each other. And we are preparing to get a nice level surface so that we can add in our countertops. For the countertops, we did decide to use a solid wood butcher block style countertop. This is a birch countertop, and I am working on the long section right here, giving it a good sand down. I started off with 220 on the sandpaper, and then as we finished it, we got all the way up to 400 grit. Originally, I had decided that I was not going to stain these. I was just going to urethane them to protect them out in the shed. But we decided, looking at the tiles on the floor that are very gray, that we needed to bring in some warmth from somewhere. And this was the best option. And I am so happy that we went with this stain. We went with an early American stain here. I put it on very lightly. This is water-based. Don't swirl it like I'm doing. That does create some problems. But you have to work with the water-based stain very, very quickly because it dries so fast. This is one of the larger sections of countertop right here, and this one had to be special ordered. The other one was sold in a big box store just off the shelf, and they are a little bit different in grain style and their size and width between the boards, but it's not super noticeable. But I'm just finishing up this large one right here, and then I'm going to move on to urethaning them. I couldn't be happier with how these turned out in the end. They are beautiful. They have a nice satin finish to them and a very warm tone. But very happy with that. And we let these sit in the garage for a few days, and then we moved them out into the shed and got them set up. This did take a little bit of time, and honestly, it was kind of cold the day we were working on this. But I can't wait to show you what the shed looks like. And with that, I think we're going to end this video right here. We don't want to give too many spoilers before we actually get to tour the garden shed, and you'll get to see the interior in its entirety. Now, if you did miss the video where I did the linens and all the sewing for the shed, I'll link that right here in the cards. And we hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comments section down below. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. We hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye!